Okay, so welcome to Flip the Side of Therapy. I'm Sally Hyde, licensed mental health counselor, and I'm here with
Deanna Payton, and I'm a certified life coach.
and today we thought our topic would be about love because it's Valentine's Day, and what better date than to talk about love? And so we thought that would be our topic, and maybe a little bit about what love is not. We could start with. I know there's a great Anthony DeMello tape I listened to years ago, and he's like, let's strip away. I always like that. To know who we are is very, I think that the approach of learning who we are not or who we've been told or what it is, and stripping away the layers of programming and conditioning to oftentimes get to the purest form of who we are, what love is. But I just remember, I use this example in therapy. I go, unconditional love, think of it as a flower. It comes into this world of its own being with no assistance, and as it blooms and blossoms, its essence just is. It doesn't turn away from a certain person when you walk by. It doesn't want, need, tear, beg, demand. It doesn't have expectations. It doesn't have any desire. It just loves, period. And so when you hear that, it's like, anything short of that is, well, I love you if, you look the right way, or I'll love you if, X, Y, or Z. But I thought that was a good analogy of, I hear my cat in the background with the dogs. So you'll have to excuse us. Yeah, we got
Life's happening.
So, but so once maybe your take on what are you thinking when it comes to Valentine's Day, love, and maybe our programming, or what stands in the way of understanding true love.
Yeah. So a major lesson for me in regards to love lately has been, kind of breaking through love versus attachment. Our society, we're very raised, and what we see in movies, what we hear in music, what we are likely modeled by parents is almost always conditional love that is based in attachment. I read a quote earlier, and I don't know if this is word for word, but it's unconditional love is not based on the performance of the receiver, but on the character of the giver. So it's kind of like, if in any way we have to be something, do something, change who we are, feel one way, or become anything other than just what we are as we just are,
right.
Then it's a condition, right? There's an expectation. There's a you can, I think it's hard to balance. The attachment is saying, like, I need you. There was a video you recently shared with me with the speaker Ram Dass, who he said something, the words aren't exact, but something kind of the effect of, oh my gosh, I totally lost my train of thought.
Right.
Like, it just went out the window. But the essence of it is that unconditional love is given. It's just a state of being.
Right,
It's not something that we need from someone else. Oh, that's what the quote was.
Right.
It was saying that basically we're raised to believe that love only comes, like, that we experience love with another person, and then we believe that that's the only way that we can experience love.
Right.
But love is such like a foundational piece of what makes life meaningful. That so we end up seeking love through friendships, through family, through partners, through and Ram Dass even talks specifically around sex. We think that making love brings love, but in reality, that's another form of attachment to say, I can only feel love through you, rather than seeking it within ourselves, and then it just existing outside of us.
Yeah, and I think this idea that we've been so conditioned and domesticated to believe that, we are supposed to, our parents love us, and then we're supposed to find a partner to love. And if you're ever attracted to someone else, then oh my gosh, I must not love my partner because I love this person, but then I have feelings for this person, and then oh my gosh. And yet understanding love just loves all. Love does not have a divorce decree. It doesn't have a wedding marital contract.
No paperwork involved.
Right. Love just loves equally, infinitely, and expands. And so when we limit the capacity or try to ration out the love, like I should love my mom more than my neighbor, or I should love my husband more than my best friend, that's the mind, that's the limiting belief. And so then we start to adapt to that, and then we have that expectation that person's supposed to feel the same way. And then that's when pain and suffering comes. Love doesn't care if you love them back. Unconditional love could care less if you're loved back by the person. It just loves. Even when the person's looking at you saying, fuck you, I can't stand you. You're like, okay, love ya.
Yeah.
It just loves.
I was thinking about it on the way over here, like where do I see unconditional love in my life? And I think one of the easiest ways to pinpoint it is where maybe you still have love towards someone that there's also a lot of pain or resentment or history with. So like, you know, a great example is my dad. Like my dad and I don't currently have a relationship. There's a lot of really negative, heavy, toxic stuff between us. But I was thinking like there's still so much love inside of me for him to the, like I just want what's best for him and I love him so much. I just want him to be happy. And it doesn't matter if he doesn't like me or he hates me or he thinks that I'm, you know, a terrible human being. Like, I mean, and I'm not saying he does think that. I have no idea what he thinks, but I'm saying it can go to that extreme and it can still, like, the love in me for him didn't change even when I was in pain and I decided, you know, I can't have that relationship anymore. It's still this, like, deep, just like, I love him, you know, like.
Yeah, it's compassion. And so, an father-daughter example, I was, you know, I finally arrived in business and I was like, okay, I'm going to show my parents that I can financially 100% support myself and I don't need my dad's help anymore. So I go to him so proud and I was like, I can handle the finances for taking over Grace's private school. And I got no response. And I was like, okay, well, it's interesting. And I went to visit my mom and dad and my dad just kind of looked the other way. And I was like, oh, he's not talking to me. He's like not talking to me. And I was like, wow. And I realized this man's whole premise of feeling loved and feeling worthy is in his giving. And if he can't provide, then what will people love me? Will people need me? But he also was the little 8-year-old who was shipped away to military boarding school by his father, who favored his 2 sisters that got to stay home. And so I was able to be like, oh my gosh, I chuckled inside and I was like, he's really mad at me because I've taken away a role that is the very precipice upon which he stands for getting all of his self-worth and love. So I was able to be like, okay, I could go one way and be like, I can't believe that you don't see that I'm successful. And like, that's the ego wanted to do that. But it was like, this isn't about me. Yeah. This is about like, and so then I think of ways, I'm like, okay, let me ask him some business advice or what could I do to give him a job or something like that, because you know, here he's, you know, coming back from cancer and all that stuff. But I was able to see a little 8-year-old boy, and I think that that's what love does. Now it doesn't always stay that way. Trust me. You have heard me many times been like, my dad. Okay, but in those little moments where we want to make it about ourselves, then I go, oh my gosh. To love is to just allow him to, if serving is what he does, I don't have to see him be like, I've made it and I need to. No, it's like sometimes it's just best to let it be. And if that brings him joy and pleasure, it's let things be. We're always trying to like prove to each other. But I think you saw the brokenness, and I too, in our fathers, and that little 8-year-old boy who throwing a temper tantrum or who can't call their daughter or who ignores it. I don't want to say it's funny, but I chuckle because I'm like, oh gosh, because I know I have to go back in that system and be like, we're gonna talk. You know? Yeah. And then today I texted him and I said, you know, would you like me to go get a Valentine's card for mom? You know, because, you know, I know it's hard for him to drive. Yeah. And he's like, well, that's very thoughtful. And I'm like, well, it's because I love you. Yeah. I'm not mad at you, right?
I think that's a really interesting point too, because I find that like with some family members, like I'll see where maybe like, again, like love, I think it's so important to kind of come with like, love is not codependency. Right. But that's what so many of us have. And codependency, for those who aren't quite, you know, spun up on it, is I need to be needed, and that makes me feel loved. And so that actually creates like a suffocating environment for both partners, because frankly, you'll never feel what you want to feel if you need to be needed. And it suffocates your partner. You'll never feel like you're needed enough, because that isn't love, and that's what you're seeking. So it's kind of like going down this path to find something that's really on the end of the other one that's totally the opposite way. But I think it's interesting too, something to point out is that, so like I've in the past maybe tried to not play into the asleep ways that people will try to feel loved, valued, and have purpose. But if they're in an asleep state and they're not aware of where it's all coming from, it is loving to separate your own what you see, and you might be able to see through it and see that like that's actually coming from kind of like a toxic space.
Yeah.
But if you're also, like you said with your dad, like just saying like, you know what, that's what he derives that from right now. And until he comes into more self-awareness, that's the only source of love he has.
Yes.
So why would I want to take that from him?
Exactly. It's unloving to go into a system and try to awaken or rip someone away from that and be like, are you kidding me? Your whole basis of love is dependent on what you can do financially. And it's like, oh, so what if it is? Like who am I to sit there and be like, oh, no. And I've trust me, I've tried that. I've been on this holier than thou kick, and wanted to go impose my, we have all these animals around us, impose my my new awareness or whatever. And people, guess what? People don't want to hear it. They don't have to, and it's not any of my business to bring that message to them, because sorry, because we have a lot of love here. Because
for those who are just hearing the audio, a cat just ran right behind us. It was funny.
Because that's not the loving thing to do. The most loving thing to do is to leave another alone. Really, the most loving thing for me to do is stay in my lane, keep my side of the street clean, work on my alignment, and leave everyone else alone.
Yes, and I see that a lot in romantic partners. We spend a lot of time trying to get our romantic partners to do and be what we think we want them to be, what we need them to be. But what we're basically saying is, you as you are is not good enough. I need this in order to feel happy, loved,
and
secure.
I know the right way, and your way's wrong.
And your way's wrong. Right. And I talk all the time with clients. A lot of clients, especially if they're having relationship issues, they've already done the love languages quiz, right? Because they think that's gonna like fix, like, okay, now you're gonna know how to love me properly.
Just because you know my love language.
Right. But in reality, that the entire purpose of that is for us to understand and be able to recognize when our partner is giving love in their own way, not for us to say, okay, you know that my love language is gifts, so I better have a shit ton of gifts every week.
As if their programming is just going to change overnight and be like, oh, your touch. Well, let me start doing that.
And again, it's another way that we're just asking someone to get us. Right. And that in itself is unloving. Like, if you're secure and you love yourself, no one else has to get you. And then you're giving your partner the space to be them and to love you in their own way, which is more beautiful when you can accept it. But so then it's like, okay, my love language might be gifts, but my husband's is words of affirmation. So when he's giving me words of affirmation, it's love that's coming from his heart from me. And it's so much more meaningful to understand it's coming from their space.
So if you can remove your ego long enough
it's tough.
And see that person's loving you, then you won't personalize and be like, it's not in the form I wanted.
I don't feel it. Yeah, exactly.
You don't love me enough. Or you don't fill me up. Oh, I think I would be girl.
Sally's burnout on couples.
No, I know. No, I will say though, I loved, and I will always love, when I flipped through YouTube, and like 3 years ago I came across this Will Smith video, and I was like, Will Smith? I was like, he delivered probably the most awakening message. I don't even know if something just zapped into him. I don't know if he stays that way, but he said, you cannot make another person happy. You can make them smile, you can make them laugh, but you cannot make them happy. It is our sole responsibility to go inside ourselves and find our own personal happiness, and then represent that to each other, already coming from a place of happiness and joy. And then, and then bring that union together. But to come to each other with our cups empty, demanding that you fill my cup, or that, you meet my needs, is unrealistic, and it's just never going to happen. And I was like,
That's unkind.
I was left dumbfounded. I was like, okay, Will Smith,
flipping the script.
Yeah, and it stuck with me, and I was like, but it's so true. We come to each other with our like beggars, like, why don't you love me enough? Or like, well, first of all, what's your definition of love you enough? I bet you don't even know your own. So if you're about to try to tell someone, and it's no one's responsibility to love you. Like, we weren't put on this earth to get people to love us. Our mission in this wetsuit or avatar suit or whatever is to have a spiritual experience in the physical plane, to love, to be an expansion of the connection to Creator and God, and to love, period. But if there's the expectation that the man outside doing my lawn needs to appreciate me more, or my mom doesn't love me enough, well, can we get rid of it? And this is the biggest challenge. I struggle with it all the time. Can you rid yourself of your pride and ego and your desires and attachments, and see them purely for who they are? And when you do, usually you see a broken little individual, a little girl or a little boy. It doesn't matter the age, but the fear, false evidence appearing real, the fear that's under all of it, that if they act angry towards you, or it's all it is fear. It's fear of loss of control. This concept, it's an illusion, but it's really, it's not intentional. It's just, and we were told at a young age to guard ourselves, watch our back, don't trust people and stuff. And so no wonder we have all of these little archetypes or little masks we wear, where it's like, I'm only going to step 1 inch forward if you step an inch forward, or tit for tat and one-upmanship. And I see that with couples all the time. They're like, they're keeping score constantly. Well, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. I'm like,
no one wins. No one wins the game when we keep score. I'm
like, but what if both just didn't keep score and they just loved, and without any expectation that your partner has to, I'm sure on Valentine's Day it's gonna be like, I wonder if my partner got me anything. Brian and I, we forgot. We don't.
It's like, you got me Russell Stover's chocolates instead of Godiva's.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
And it's just selfish, right?
Yeah.
But it's it's something. This is a huge topic. It's the only topic to ever discuss. It's the ultimate mission in life is to love, to go back to self, to the childlike state, to love self, and emanate out the beam of light of true being of love that we are. To learn to pass that on to love others, period. Not, well, I gave 55% and you only gave 50. Well, so what are we doing here? It's like, it doesn't do that, but that's...
Love doesn't expect.
Yeah, love doesn't, I love it. It doesn't rip, tear, bend, break, demand, expect, have any rules. It doesn't require anything. And boy, oh boy, there have been few people who have walked this earth that have been examples of that.
And the examples would be people like Buddha or Jesus
right.
or the Dalai Lama. People of that caliber are the ones that are really living in love. But what's interesting is when you hear people talk about being in the presence of those people, they say that it's like people just want to be there because all they're doing is emanating love. And I think what's incredible too is, again, something that's kind of come into my awareness this week is that I was listening again to Ram Dass. If anyone's looking to learn about love, Ram Dass is an amazing teacher. But he said that love is ordinary, and we're all I have been caught in the trap of looking for fireworks all the time. But my husband and I have been together for a decade. Right. You know what I mean? We've known each other since we were 17. Right. There's not a whole lot of fireworks oh my god, when we were 17, 18, and I kept feeling like there was something wrong because I wasn't feeling this that when you're just a kid and love is new and exciting and it's just
because some days you walk to the front door and you're like, maybe you're busy and you just don't want to talk.
Or it's just okay, there he is.
Right.
You know what I mean? And but the thing is, we've been together a long time, but B, because I'm expecting fireworks, I haven't been able to appreciate how nice that what we have now, what we've had before, the fireworks were attachment. Right. Because it felt so good to have love. Right. I was I'm in it. But now that it's a constant underlying unconditional love between us, it's very ordinary. And it freaked me out to the point that I was oh my god, I'm doing something wrong. Right. We're gonna fall apart if we don't get this spark relit. Yes. But then I was also, another thing Ram Dass said is that love is just looking into another person's eyes and going, oh, there's a soul in there. I'm in here. Are you in there? And how did you get in there? How did we get in here? Right? In these bodies. And after listening to that, I did that with my husband, and I just kind of looked at him, and I was it hit me that because I'm so worried about trying to create love in the image that society's told me it had to be in, I almost haven't. So I know my husband, but I was realizing there's sides of him that I haven't even been open to seeing, and that actually increase the love I have for him, because I'm seeing who I think he is, and this projection of what I want him to be, or where he should be, or what it's supposed to look like, that I've actually dismissed. There are so many things that are just him that are beautiful and love, and you know what I mean? Yeah. It's easier, but it is scary to realize this model of love we have is not actually working.
No. And I noticed I could be a real fanatic, and since I lose my keys, my phone, it's scattered all the time. But the ways that Brian shows love is he doesn't really picks up after me, but he knows the water bottles need to go in the car for work, or he'll he'll close the gates where the dogs that I've left open, or just I've made a mess, and he's not like why can't you always. He's just like attentive and kind like that, and he seeks to make my day easier. He doesn't judge me or like berate me for it, and and then like where it was so funny because he's a personal trainer, but he was training me. And I was like, you're a real jerk when you train, And he's like, I don't care. And I was like, I go, all right, I'd be like,
that's love too, isn't it?
Yeah, he's like, I don't care. I mean, do it. And but it's also being able to not personalize and but being able to see those finer lines of what the other person's expressing as love. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And expectations, if we have an expectation that somebody should treat us a certain way, then there goes that attachment.
Yeah.
And when that attachment does not come to fruition, we seek to blame outside, and we will spend an eternity trying to get someone. You're too far left, you need to go right. You're this, you're that. You need to change it from a triangle into a square, and good luck with that, because all you're going to be met with is resistance.
Yeah, and I think another really big thing, like I think we hear it all the time, but I think it's very rare that we actually are given it in a way that we can like connect and understand what it means. That idea of like you can't love anyone until you love yourself.
Right.
To expect unconditional love from someone who does not unconditionally love themselves, you're asking them for something they can't give.
Right.
And so this is where in a lot of mental health, we're always talking about you have to work on you in order to bring what you're wanting into the rest of your life, but B, to others. But what we're doing is saying like, I don't love myself enough. I need you to do it.
Right.
But that work of self-love is creating unconditional love within yourself, to where if you're having a bad day, you still love yourself. If you were a mess, or you gain 50 pounds, or you you mess up, or I don't know, you like let someone you care about down, like the love for yourself doesn't change, and then you can extend that out to others as well. But it's just this expectation, we're still seeking so much outside for something that really truly is only created within. And again, I think it's so confusing because we get it so mixed up with attachment. That's really what we're modeled. So what would you say would be some key things people could look for as far as like identifying what love versus attachment is? Like maybe like a scenario where it's like, this would be a scenario in which it was love, and this is a scenario in which it's attachment.
Yeah. Well, I will say, like, I see as a mother, I like to pretend like I can tell myself I unconditionally love my daughter, but if she does something that frustrates me or annoys me, she's going to get a message that I might turn away, or I might sigh, and so those little messages send to her, Mom's happier with me when I do the right thing, and she's not, and it really clued me in on, like, even she's been conditioned that Mom loves me more when I do what she wants. And I had to learn this through another great teacher, but that's how we were conditioned too. And so it was like, we want to please everyone, or we want to. So I don't know if that even was close to answering your question, but it helps me to remind myself that, like, I am not anywhere close to this attainment of loving all. But when I have an attachment to something, I'm able to at least feel the discomfort on the physical body, and then I try to challenge the irrational belief, and I'm like, why do I have this expectation? Is this programming, or and what makes me think this person actually has to love me? That's great. If they do, that's great, but they don't have to. Nobody has to love us. Like, I just want to make that clear to everyone. There have been stories of people who have lived horrific lives and have the most loving hearts, who have been, POWs, or people who have lived in poverty or abused and raped and have the pure heart. We don't, that's icing on the cake, but it's, the attachment is in the expectation of someone that needs to treat us a certain way. But it's about recognizing that, and then for me, I go, what is it? What am I seeking outside to fill inside? This is an inside job, so I try to go instantly to the. Usually, I personalize something. I have an unrealistic expectation, making an assumption, or just I've slipped back in a sleep state, and I'm just throwing a temper tantrum, or some sort of like, I want what I want, and and then you kind of catch yourself. It's really good to have a kid because you see it really reflected back at you.
Oh, I bet.
Oh boy.
I bet.
Yeah.
Just like probably like 10 times.
Oh yeah. I love when my daughter's like, I don't love you anymore.
Ooh.
And I'm like, all right.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm like inside. I remember one time when she was 4, this was a big moment. She was like 3 or 4, and she had done something like I was on the computer. You know how like if you need someone to help you, they can come through your speaker and talk you through how to fix your computer. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't giving Grace this attention or whatever she wanted, and she would like slamming her door, and then she's a real character. And I remember her going like, "Stop hitting me, Mom!" And I was like, "Oh my!" Right? I was like, "Oh my gosh!" I go, and I was like, "Sir, I'm not hitting my kid." Like she's a drama queen, and I was like, "Grace!" And then she had slipped out the door, and this is when we were in a condo, and I couldn't find her. And I freaked out. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I was screaming, looking for her. And the whole time she heard me. She was down by the lake where the apartment was. And she was in this like namaste yoga pose at 3. And she heard me. And I looked at her. And I was like, Grace. And she's like, yes. And I was like enraged. I was like, you heard me the whole time. And the message, I know at that age, she came to me later that day and she said, she looked at me and she goes, I don't love you. And I said, okay, this is one of those moments that I need to be very aware. And I went, that's okay. And she looked at me and she's like, I just want you to know I don't love you. And I was like, I love you and that's okay if you don't. And then she sighed and she went, yeah, I do, and walked off. But you know what I realized? I realized she was saying, do I have the permission to not have to love you? Or is it going to be like, oh, well, you don't love your mom and all the stuff I do for you? What do you, like, that conditioning that we would have gotten, like, and I was like, I don't care. If you don't love me, that's fine. I love you, period.
And that is unconditional, right there.
Yeah, and I knew, I was like, this is one of those moments, if I don't seal it, because I wanted to rip her head off. But I knew that this was one of those moments that cemented it. She goes, I don't love you. And I was like, hold it. Inside my higher self was like, hold it. And I went, that's absolutely fine. That is fine. And she's like, and then once I was like, okay, she's like, I do. And then I was like, whoa, because it sent the message like, I'm not forced to have to love my mom or whatever. And that's the best message I think that I could have given her of non-attachment. I mean, that was one moment. I'm sure it's been buried, but I mean, it's something where it was powerful because she just wanted the permission to. Do I have to love you because you're my mom and all that stuff that we were told, like, because I remember I would never say that. It was like, oh, you don't? Well, guess what? We don't love you, or something like so silly that like parents do. Or
I would have never even dreamed of saying that to
my
parents.
No, never.
No,
yeah.
I don't think that would have ever been something that would have.
I
would have been like punished
for
saying.
It's
like,
oh, right.
Oh, if you think about like that, you should be allowed to say it.
Oh, I know.
And like it's so funny because that translates into our romantic relationships too, where like it's that same like, okay, so this is kind of like another example of attachment versus unconditional. Right. If you unconditionally love your partner, if they don't love you anymore, you say, oh, okay, then I let you go.
Do your dance,
right? Like I let you go. I love you so much that I would rather you find where you feel at home. Like, you know what I mean?
Of course, yes.
And that doesn't mean it wouldn't hurt you. That doesn't mean that you wouldn't have pain or grief or any of the emotions that come with that. But love release. Love doesn't hold tight. But we're raised to believe that if you love something, you cling to it. You don't let that go for anything. You fight for it.
That's where suffering comes.
And it's funny because what you've demonstrated with Grace is that when you said, okay, and you gave that, you loosened your grip and you said, okay, I love you enough to let you go. If that's what you want, then she came back and she's like, no, I love you. And I find that's often the same in relationships too, that like our partners we put so much pressure on it when we're saying like, you're like, especially marriage. Like I feel like the second we sign that piece of paper at the courthouse, we go, okay, now it's really serious and nothing can ever happen and we have to stay together forever or else. Like, but what that does is it suffocates and it takes all of the fun, all of the spark, all the adventure out of your relationship.
You don't know how many couples who come in. I was time after time. We were engaged 2 years, had a great relationship, got married, and it's just been downhill. Yeah. Another couple comes in. We were dating for 5 years, got married. It's been heavy. I'm like, it's this switch goes off where it's like, okay, now I'm husband and your wife, and it's like
subscribe to the role now. Right. The expectations shift. The expectations, like, because really, not those two people don't change between the moment before they sign the paper and the after.
Right, but that conditioning comes heavy on, and then it's like. So I'm just saying, let's just all not get married.
Yeah, and like my thing is like, if it's something that's important to you, then great. But like society doesn't get to determine.
Don't let it hold.
Don't let a piece of paper tell you that something has to change between you and your person. But
because love is not going, ooh, a contract was signed.
Yeah,
it doesn't understand that. Love just loves whether there's whether it's love your cat, your mother, love loves. It's a human who's come and put indoctrination, religious kind of beliefs, and all that stuff around it. So it doesn't.
That's why it's so painful.
Yeah, right.
Like
because then we go deeper in levels. But we were married. But we were right.
Yeah.
It's like So.
When in reality, like you could equally grieve someone who,
of course,
who you're just like who you dated for a month, but you had a very deep connection with, as you could someone you were married to for 3-4 years.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Because it's just a human connection, and either way, it's a like I think a healthy way is like if you were to let someone go, you just say like you come back to like, yes, I'm sad, and you let yourself feel it, and you let yourself be there, but also understanding like that doesn't change anything about your worth or who you are as an individual.
Yes.
And it also doesn't mean that you have to stop loving that person.
Exactly.
Like I remember what was part of what made my divorce so painful is that I still loved my husband. Like I still had so much love for him that it was almost, I didn't know how to reconcile still feeling such deep love for him and being so angry and hurt and grieving the loss of this major relationship. And that was, but it's because our society doesn't teach us that those two things can coexist. Yes. You see people who break off love and then they're like, oh, F them, I'm done with them, and or they'll go out of their way to hurt each other, things like that. Really low vibration stuff that really, and the thing is, it's so funny because all of that is still, the only reason we're hurt is because love is present.
Yes.
Right? Like, so, but we don't see that love is really at the root of everything that we feel, think, and do, or the seeking of love. And so it's just this like really pervasive thing that's under everything, but it's so invisible to us because we think it's just this surface drama.
So I think as we go along our day, if we can just be intentional about loving the lady who slams the door in your face and despite that, or love the person who is rude to you at the checkout counter, in not personalizing it, but just extend the love. You see the beetle, walk around the little beetle. You see your, don't. There's nothing to disturb or get in the way of, manipulate. Just allow things to unfold, and you'll start to see love just you start to compassion starts to come in, and you start to see everyone is just trying to do their very best, and then really when you see someone who's in a sleeping state, you really have compassion for them because you're like, I mean, how can you argue or be upset with someone who has the hand but hasn't developed the fingers yet? It's like what do you, this person has been buried under so much conditioning and programming, especially older people or our parents. They're like, oh, that person's too right. It's like, of course they are, but only on the backs of their life have you been able to expand. It's not like it's through that you the left that you came to the right. So it's all for the greater good of higher love and higher awareness. So
and like the understanding that like just kind of the compassion of putting yourself in their shoes and understanding like, I want love, and I know how good love feels, and this person's acting this way because they don't feel like they have it. Like, that's, if you can't resonate with that.
Well, I'll leave with a story, but I remember with my teacher, Becky, I remember being like, I'm so frustrated because my mom always gets me these clothes, and I say, I don't want them. And she's like, no, have them. And I go, no, Mom, because if I take them, you're going to see, why aren't you wearing this shirt I gave you? Why aren't you doing it? I mean, I was just going off and rambling. And she was listening. She goes, well, why, like, let's say she gives you a scarf. Why can't you wear the scarf? I go, because there's all these strings attached and maybe I don't want to. And maybe she goes, well, my question is, though, why can't you wear it just to wear it because it brings her joy? And I was like, I go, but I don't want to. She's like, it doesn't matter if you want to or not. If it brings her that much joy, why can't you do it, period? Whether she says, why haven't you worn it? Like, why can't you? And I was like, oh, we're playing in a different ball game now. It was like,
take the high road.
Right. And I was like, she's like, that's unconditional love. Unconditional love says, I see the joy that this brings in you to give me this. And of course I could wear it without like, well, okay, I'll only wear it if you make sure you don't ask me questions about it. If you like, I couldn't believe, I was like so disgusted with myself at the time, but I was like, no, there's no, of course I can do that.
Yeah, like without it taking away, it doesn't have to take away from you. And one more thing I just want to kind of wrap up love. I think it's so important to say, like, we all give it in our own ways.
Mm-hmm.
It's just about finding the way that feels natural to you to give it. So like for me, it might be, I tell people what I appreciate in them. Like I will tell people I love you, or or, you know, like, you know, oh, I love your shoes, or your sense of style is great, or every time I see you, you're like a bright light in my day, right? Those things stick with people when it's given in love, whether that's, you know, a thoughtful gift or a just nice words or an act of service.
Just looking someone in the eye.
Or just making eye contact where you're really trying to, even just being willing to see someone for who they are without changing, without imposing, without your own perspective involved at all. Just being like, wow. Yeah. Okay, I see you.
It feels so nice to be kind to people.
Yeah, really and kindness is love. Kindness is love in action. And so I think it's just, we just need to like kind of come to a society like where love, we think we have to like do these big grand things, but love is small, but it's so much more meaningful when it's done just, you know, throughout your day. And the thing is, it feeds you as well as the person on the other end. So it's so mutually beneficial.
Isn't it funny how in their culture for Valentine's Day, I went with my daughter to get things, the shelves are empty, people are scrambling to express love, and it's like, but on every other day, a husband or wife's like, could you just bring home a flower? We can't on this little, like,
we do have dishes.
Yeah. Can you, and it's like, you know, this gesture of, and it's just funny, but it's like, make every day an extension of Valentine's Day, you know, where you express love. Or
love is everywhere. We just gotta look for it and create it in our own lives. Yeah, so very much so.
Yeah,
awesome.
Good. Okay,
well, happy Valentine's Day.
Yep, and we hope you enjoy this, and leave any suggestions or comments below, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, awesome.
Okay.
Bye.
Right, bye.